That's the kind of kiss after you're married for 59 years. That's not the kind of kiss when you get to your first marriage. Remember,
Where'd you meet Mother?
On a blind date.
Who set you up for that?
Well, I was working up there at the mill, and this young fellow was working up there at the mill. I got talking to him. What was it? Probably talking about going out with girls. He said he had a date to go out with her sister. And he told me that she had a sister. Oh, I said, how about telling Florence to fix it up, and I'll go out and I'll take you out and take the sister out. The next couple of days he told me I got it fixed up, so I took him and I took two sisters out.
I want to know if that's a true story. Is that how it happened?
Where'd you go?
Well, I don't know where you were, just
went to
for...
Newcastle to Cascade Park.
Yeah, up Cascade Park, I think. Well, I didn't time it was park.
That was far.
Cascade Park?
Sure, from Rochester to Cascade Park in Newcastle.
Bigger show or something.
They don't have that no more, do they?
30 miles?
It's still there, but within that was far.
What kind of park is Cascade Park? Is that an amusement park?
Yeah,
Still there?
I guess it's there, but it don't run.
Up in Elwood City.
They don't.
That's what you're talking
That was
about,
over
Elwood?
60 years ago.
Yeah.
No, it's there, but it's
Better been 60 years ago.
years ago. That was far. Now here.
Did he ask you to get married that night?
Oh
No. Did he ask your father to let's get married?
no. Did he ask my father?
No, you.
Did he ask me that night to get married?
Yeah.
Oh no. I didn't even talk about that.
Hey, when did that happen?
When did that happen? When did he finally ask you? That's what I want to know. Or did you have to really plant it in his mind?
Oh, probably someplace along the line, or he wouldn't have asked me. Probably was a subconscious thought. I don't know. You have to ask him. That's his different.
Well,
have to
did
ask
you?
him that with
Did
me.
you?
Now you're gonna finish the story on them oxen. My dad... I just want to tell you.
subject.
No, we'll talk
My
about
dad,
Max
my
later.
dad and uncle run that woods down there. So
Maybe you never asked her. You
Oh,
don't have
I
to stick
asked
to
her.
this story now.
I guess she must have said yes.
Did you get down on
Ever
one
happened?
knee and ask her, or what?
Huh?
Did you get down on one knee and ask her?
No, I wasn't on my
Let me
knees.
show you on the porch.
Sitting in a Model T car.
No. He's in the porch swing.
Oh, really?
Down Ryan Avenue.
Yeah, the porch went out in the back, front porch. That's the front porch, wasn't it?
Did you ask her father?
Yeah, told him.
You told him. That's a whole lot different, let me tell you.
Just how it was, you know. Well, sure, I mentioned it to him. Well, yes. In the front room there, didn't it?
Hey, you turned out to be a real gentleman.
Well, his father-in-law always thought so.
All three.
Mike and Mary Freshkorn for so many years. Don, Jerry Pierce. 58 years. Could you explain to us how you met Mary?
Well, fellow worked up at the mill with me, and
His name was Lauren Mason.
his name was
Warren Mason, she went out a few times with her sister, and he asked me, we got to talking, and wondered if I'd go out with him. He said he'd fix it up with her sister. We'd go out. So that's how I met on a blind date like that.
Where did you go?
Oh, just riding around someplace, I don't know. I don't think he had a car, I think we used my car.
So that's why he wanted to take you, wanted you to
Drive-in theater, did we?
I don't think it was drive-in theaters that time.
Yes, there was.
We didn't go to no theater. I don't remember if we went anyplace or not. Well, then I made another date with her.
We went
Kept
to
on going
Newcastle.
with her, and about 3 months we was married.
3 months?
Yeah.
What did you find in her that attracted you to her?
I don't know. Really, for sure. Oh, she seemed like a pretty good kid, I guess. I don't know what she wanted to see in me either.
What'd you see in him, Grandma?
Oh, I'll be darned if I know. Just one of those things, I guess. Just the right ingredients, I guess, there to make it go the married, and I guess that was it. Maybe we was just ready to get married, I don't know. Because we're 20 years old.
Well, I wasn't staying at home. I was, boarding at my uncle's place.
Mm-hmm.
Freedom.
He didn't have a real home. And 20 years old, you're ready to settle down some days.
So after 3 months you got married, and where were you working then?
Armco.
And Grandma, you were working at the telephone company?
I was working in the telephone office.
And how long did you work there before,
2 years.
and then what happened?
Well, I continued working.
And then, when did Jerry come along in the scene?
Oh, she wasn't born in 1930. That was 1928 when we were married. She
Jerry
was-
was born when I was 21.
She was born in 1930. Of course, she was 21 January the 9th.
Yeah.
And she was born January the 30th. This made you 21, which is true.
And then Maybelle was born how many years thereafter?
She was born in 1932. In July.
And Granddad made the comment yesterday that you'd been living on Easy Street if you hadn't gotten pregnant.
Right.
It wasn't his fault. It was your fault.
What? Did I get pregnant?
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that strange? I did that all by myself. It never happened to me before, but then after I married him, then that was all, I did that all by myself. Now, I know that nobody else can do a thing like that, so I feel unique. But I was able to accomplish such a feat by myself. I don't know why I needed him.
Why were you needed, do you think?
Because I didn't. I had to think about it. If I do such marvelous things all by myself.
Now, how many years did you work at Armco, Granddad?
44.
44 years. And Grandma, you worked how many years at St. Joe?
Well, we're not going to talk about that.
Not gonna talk about that? Okay.
No years and you were older years. In the telephone company, they still worked.
Yeah, she wasn't working steady.
Was
One day, $3.20, and they took out her insurance, had about $1 and something left. Oh, boy, something.
And they had an insurance, surprising enough, the telephone company had an insurance policy too at that time. Most places they didn't, but they did.
I bet y'all went out sometimes in a pay, went out 6 or 7 days and come back home. Never, you had to go out and see if they had anything for you.
I would have been able to continue working because I was floor supervisor.
Yeah.
And that is, like I was a substitute. But if I had kept on working, I would actually have fallen into place, you know. But, well, best laid plans of mice or men can go awry, you know. As we like to do when we like to do them, here's happen. The appraisal was real nightmare.
Of course, wages wasn't then like they are now.
No, but then nothing else was either. I mean, it didn't take much to live at those days, but then you didn't have, you didn't have the truth to buy, but it still, it was fun.
I think when I made a full day, I only made about $10, $11.
Yeah, but look, $11 a buck them days.
Where'd you first live when you got married? After you got married, where did you live? Rochester?
We lived in, we lived in Beaver on 2nd Street, 1230. 1232nd. Huh?
You remember that number?
1232nd Street.
And then from there, where'd you go?
From there, we went to Beaver to an apartment on Canal Street. I don't remember the number of that place. That was an apartment.
531, wasn't it?
Huh?
531 Canal Street, I think it was.
Now, that's a possibility. That's a possibility. Because that wasn't very far up in Beaver there. That could be. But we have a real nice apartment there. Then we moved from there to Rochester, and that's where Mayville, Jerry was born. Well, Mayville was born there too. But from after that, everything started going downhill.
Last night's wedding, there were 2 of your sisters there.
Yeah.
How many children were in your family?
4 of them. 3 girls and 1 boy.
And for the record, when were you born?
1908,
Where?
out in Sticks, woods.
Well, now, tell me what you were doing.
Well, Gosford
You
Township.
wanted to, that's where you're going, Dawkins, that's where he wants to know.
Yeah.
Grandma, you were born where?
I was born in Dexter City, Ohio.
And there are how many children in your family?
6.
And your parents' names were?
Sarah and George.
Crumb.
Right.
And Granddad, your parents' names were?
I didn't understand.
Your parents, what were their names?
Pauline and Jim.
Oh, yeah, Pauline, Jim. James, Pauline, James, or Pauline, Jim, either one.
What business was your dad in?
Well, him and his brother had a sawmill, and they, cut timber out of woods, bought a big woods and cut the timber out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Boards and, rough timber. That's where this sawmill was. And they had to build a little, 2-room house there, and that's it was an awful big woods, and I guess it took about 1.5 years getting that timber out of that, getting that timber out of the sawmill out of that wood.
And that's where you first started to work there?
What's this?
You worked there, your first job was there. Didn't you work with your dad?
No.
Huh?
My first job was working at the streetcar station in Elwood City.
Oh, that's right.
Baggage man, they called me. See, my dad had that job. A few days, he was sick. Well, I went up there and done the job. I know how to do it. And my dad, he decided he wanted to run the streetcars. And he got a job running streetcars, and I took over that job. I worked there 16 months at a streetcar station. 6 days a week, 12 hours a day.
How much you get paid?
$80 a month.
It wasn't bad. Single man, Elwood City.
Single boy. Single boy.
And then from Elwood City, where did you go from the lumberyard?
Well, that was, we went out, he bought a farm out in New Sewickley Township,
Mm-hmm.
and he run a dairy business. And that's where we moved from the woods. He left the sawmill, and my uncle done it himself after that. And my dad, he went in the dairy business out on the farm. We had milk cows, you know, shipped milk from Pittsburgh.
And then from there into the steel mill?
Well, we moved to Elwood City after that. After I worked the streetcar station, I drove bus for about 6 months. Then I went to the pipe mill.
Mm-hmm.
I've practically been there ever since.
44 years, man. It's a long time.
I was only 18 when I started the mill. They asked me how old I was. I told them 23. I didn't know any difference. They didn't examine you or anything.
Didn't have to bring your birth certificate.
No, they didn't examine you. All they just wrote, that's all they wrote down.
A question I've got to ask is that in looking at your wedding announcement, they've spelled your name Frishkorn.
Frishkorn.
That's right.
Yeah.
Who did you change the name later?
Well, that wasn't proper. My dad changed it.
Okay.
It should have been Frishkorn.
Uh-huh.
After we went to moved to Elwood City, he changed it. And of course, I changed it back. That's on the marriage certificate, see.
Well, he wants to know how that happened, so there was a disagreement in the family. Your father changed the name so he could disassociate himself, but that shows you how foolish he was. He didn't know that we were still a freshman. That's how I just
City and he worked in a tube mill. He got a job in a tube mill in Elwood.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know just how long he worked at the tube mill. I don't remember anymore. Then this year out there where we moved out in the country, out between Elwood and Newcastle, he bought 15 acres of ground out there. Later, but there was a powerhouse out there, so he got a job back with the Pittsburgh Harmony Butler Newcastle Railroad Company. That's what that was called,
Mm-hmm.
and worked in that powerhouse out there. Power station. It was a booster, you know. It wasn't enough line power in the line to run from Harmony Junction, where the main building was, the main car barn, to get enough juice in that line to run them streetcars clean to Newcastle. So between Elwood City and Newcastle, they had a power station and big generators in there, you know, that run and boosted the power. He worked there, the streetcar went out of business. He was working there when it went out of business. But I had left and went to Armco. I was working at Armco. It was National Supply then. When the streetcar, I don't know, that must have run until, I'd say, practically 1940, when they went out of business.
I don't know if I asked the question. Here you're double dated with Mary's sister. Did those two guys ever get married?
No.
That was just a fling, and here you are, just to throw in the date, and you got married.
Right.
Just,
Wasn't the right chemistry there for them. Right chemistry
How long
for...
was it after that Florence did get married after that?
Oh, a long time after that. No, a long time after that.
Well, her sister's husband died.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't separated from him, divorced or anything. He got sick and died, didn't he, for some reason. Call him Pete. I never saw him
Willard.
myself.
His name was Willard.
You mentioned you have 3 sisters. Their names are what?
Mabel, Franny, Hilda.
Hilda.
How are you?
Hey, let me carry this in.
I know you this time. I was so
Let me take that from you.
You saw how are you?
No, an ice pick.
Old farmers done when they kill the pig. They take that. No, never thought to have
That's all. Then that would be what, boiled a pig.
We had a young one come along, maybe 2 years apart. Anyhow, our neighbors down over the hill, he had a bunch of cows, and something happened to his bull. And my dad lent him our bull with his cows. Then, and wasn't very long after that, I probably 6 months or so. I don't just remember, but my dad sold that bull to the butcher. We never got him back.
Well, you never had him back, so you just gave him away the one time, right?
And he sold him direct to this Bill Riser. He used to be around. He worked for a butcher down there in Freedom. He had a butcher house.
Did you ever get a replacement bull?
Well, yeah, we had another bull after that. How old was the bull?
What did you use the bull for? For plowing?
No, for breeding purposes.
To breed on the cow?
Yeah. How old was the bull? Oh, probably 6, 7 years old or something like that. We had about 20 milk cows. That's the way they done it. Get rid of the old one and the young one just coming on. And then you got old enough, you sold him to the butcher and a younger one.
Well, the moral of the story is you gotta be active, being a good stud.
You gotta be careful perform your duties when you go to the butcher.
Who did? Your dad?
He was a swinger too.
Your dad had a dance show?
Well, they didn't at first out of Walrose Dance Hall. That's where my dad used to go to them dances. My dad went this dance hall was here. My dad went this way when he was young. My mother come up another direction, and they met at this dance hall, Walrose Dance Hall, and they danced. But after my dad and mother got married, this uncle of mine he was a sawyer, they call him a sawyer. He bought timber in a sawmill, and he sawed the down toward right out of New Brighton. My uncle bought this big piece of timber down there. And of course he had a sawmill there, and that's by the time I was born. They were down and they had a dance floor. My dad and this uncle built a dance floor for the road. Copied it off of this one of the walls, and they went up there and that's how the dance hall that they owned. Down Dockery's Woods, right out of New Brighton.
Isn't that how you met Grandma? When did you meet her at dance hall?
Jimmy, you better come in and hear this one.
Jimmy! Yeah, we were afraid of him.
Start this one over again, Granddad. We had a hole of milk about 5
Right out from our house, half the field, with a fence around that, and there was trees laying out along there.
I remember.
The roadway come right along these trees. And the
Why didn't they build
barn
that?
house was back here.
She wasn't scared. She got
Come in here, come around. Anyhow, I took the milk out, come back with a buggy, and there was
I had Jerry, that's what
trees where the damn cow laying there.
Because she was scared.
Drive, road.
I said, you weren't scared. Because I had her. She was, I could lean on her.
Right alongside the horse, right alongside. The wheel started up
So
over.
why wasn't you scared? Because
She got up. Stop the buggy.
I didn't even start you.
So you showed that cow, huh?
Really fixed that cow.
Damn buggy broke the shaft in it.
Oh, boy,
Seat on the buggy.
Hey, Greg, listen to this
Horse
story.
up on a
Tell that
door.
story for Greg.
The buggy and the horse run
That's what he
off.
gets for leaving. Hey, Dad, tell Greg that story.
No, that's it. I'll get in the video.
The cow was laying on the driveway, on the road. I was in our fields with you gotta come in here and go along the fence. There were shade trees there, and the cow, it was about 11 o'clock, when I come back, he was taking the milk out. Cow was laying right on the tracks. Dang you, I'll fix you. I rode the horse right alongside of her, and the front wheel got up on her back, and she got up and upset the buggy.
Did you get hurt?
No, I didn't get hurt, threw me out. The dang horse didn't stop. She started for the barn. Was all probably in here up there, away from the barn up here, Jimmy's barn. And the horse run down there, started in the barn door, a small door, about this big, and broke the single tree, the shafts in the buggy, and she went on in the barn.
Well, the horse didn't get hurt when you fell off the horse. Did your father get through what they did with her?
Oh, his father didn't do anything to
Well,
him.
he didn't even, he give me heck, but he didn't give me no beating for that. Anyhow, he didn't put the seat back on, with just the sort of the flat body there. He says, damn you, he says, you wouldn't throw that off, now haul the milk, I don't care where you sit. So I had to sit on a milk can, take the milk out. Yeah, I sat on a milk can, deliver the milk. My dad was a louse. And anyhow, we always hired a man to go, he went thrashing in the fall, you know. And he always hired a man to help on the thrash machine. Well, some guy come along there one morning, I don't know where he come from, and wanted a job. Somebody must have told him, the neighbors or something. And Dad said, okay, he said, he lived in Pittsburgh. He wanted to go up to Pittsburgh and get some clothes and come back and go to work. I got this old seat up and I tied it on there. You know, I didn't know too much then, or didn't have no good tools. I had the seat put back on. I put back on myself.
How old would he be, Mabel?
And I was taking the milk out, and this guy was on the buggy,
Just
sitting
big
in the
kid.
seat. I don't
Because he
know,
went to-
one of those
said he
little
went
was
to
supposed to take the
13,
milk
didn't he?
Ryder's corner.
Worked in the
He put his
train
foot up on
station?
the sideboard, went around the
Streetcar
guy's
station?
shoe. He leaned over up.
Was he about 13?
Spilled 3 cans of milk.
That's the last time you're gonna run over any cow.
Boy, did I get a licking then, boy. So,
Never mind killing the cow.
that guy never come back anyhow. He never come back.
No wonder after
How
all
did you
time what happened to you.
learn how to
Right
drive in
about
a
it.
streetcar? When did you start doing that?
Well, I never drove a streetcar.
When did you drive a streetcar?
No, bus.
Was it a bus?
Yeah, streetcar. That's after we moved there.
Well, you was at the streetcar, he wants me what you did when you were at the streetcar station.
He says he didn't drive a streetcar.
I didn't drive a
He
streetcar.
worked at the streetcar station.
Oh, that's-
Now, you want to know what he did when he...
Yeah, I thought he was driving a bus.
No, I worked at the streetcar station first, baggage man. Well, then later on, I started driving. Oh, well, I quit the streetcar company. I worked 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. I got tired of that. Some guy said, let's go to Canada. The guy was driving the bus then, said, let's go to Canada. Hot one day. I said, okay, we'll go. So he quit driving the bus and I quit the streetcar company. We went to Canada. We ran out of money. We had a bump. He rode home to his brother to get money so we could come back home.
Whereabouts in Canada did you go?
Huh?
Where did you go in Canada?
Got as far as Montreal. Toronto. That's where we did. We stayed there about a week.
You got about 2 feet over the line.
And then after that, I had no job, and I went up the street. We lived about 4 miles from the streetcar station. I went up there just to talk to the guy, and they had no bus driver. And I said, well, I know the bus driver boss. I know him because he come there when I worked the streetcar. And he said, no, he said, I don't have a driver. I'll give you a job driving bus. I didn't have no license yet. I was only about 15 years old. I said, okay.
He's one of these Mexican bus drivers, right?
He said, just come up to the barn the next day, up to the, I don't know where the barn was, Harley Junction. I took the streetcar and went up there the next day and they wrote me up and I started driving about.
When you were
Was that
15.
Yeah.
You never driven a car?
No, but I know how to drive one. I drove.
We saw somebody else driving a car, he never know. Yeah, but you wouldn't have driven often, you drove your cousins.
Oh, you don't know, you saw somebody else do it.
But you just saw someone else do it, but you didn't drive a bus.
Sounds like the
I
school
never
bus
drove. I
drivers
rode
of
with the
today.
bus. I rode with the bus driver. I don't know how to drive the bus.
Oh, I see.
I know how to start. I got a crank. That's
You
what
knew
I
how
rode
to
for.
start and stop, but
That was the, that's about all they do now.
No, I didn't quit that. I was running about
He didn't even drive a car at that
a
time.
couple months after that. And the bus was leaking water so damn bad and I had to call up on the telephone and send another bus down. I did, and they sent another bus down. The next morning, I went to crank it. The damn thing kicked me, but it didn't break my arm. I cranked it left hand. I called them up and told them I quit. I didn't want another arm broke. But I didn't know I had to. He had advanced the spark and I had advanced it.
I just found out last month that after Granddad taught all of us to water ski, that he never water skied.
He never was.
I never
But he
knew
was
that.
an expert on
He
water.
watched someone else do it, yeah.
He was an expert on how to do it, you know.
Everybody but hell. I never could learn how to water.
Boy, we sure did try.
She did learn to fly, she finally learned to ski, didn't you?
No, she didn't.
Water ski.
Did you ever learn to water ski?
no, sir.
Remember how I tried to...
Oh, he was so patient.
We went up one side and on the other side of Conneaut Lake for years.
But I'll tell you one thing, Maybelle, I'll never forget the time you went out on the lake and you told me, well, it's easy, you have your lifesaver on and Hilda, you won't drown. You just get up and jump over the side. So I got up, I never went.
And you did exactly that.
I got up and jumped over the side, and my car fell over my head, and I came up and I spit in the water this way. I didn't even shut my I trusted her. I really did. She jumped over the side.
She left out one small detail.
She jumped over the side.
Oh, I remember that. And I was down there so long, I was thinking, I wonder if I was ever going to come. Well, you know, that life belt, it did push me up one day. I finally did come up, but oh, I squirted and stuff.
You probably only seem like a long time.
Well, never want to see him. You said, stand up, stand up.
He was the worst guy I got, the hardest guy. But her, I never could get her. He was next, but you might, yeah.
I'm sure glad he taught me. Damn near killed me. I went out one time, your dad says, we're going out water skiing. So we'll go out, and everybody's using the boat, and I'm driving the boat, and then everybody says, I gotta go water skiing. They put me in this water, and it's ice cold.
It always was, Jim.
I could hardly move. I got out of the damn boat. I went up to the house, I was blue. I was so cold I couldn't even get my suit on.
Hey there. Hey, all right.
Hi there, Mr. B. How are you?
Hi, Smiley.
Did you wake him up?
Hey,
No, he was weak.
I really thought we had
Never got her.
I'll be home. Don't bother.
Do you want
We're not gonna be there.
more coffee, Dad?
Yeah. I think maybe I would have died 1,000 deaths as much as Dad was driving that.
Well, he wouldn't have come because I wasn't gonna come with him, and I'm sure
I
he
was
wasn't.
gonna come myself.
Oh, we'd had to have all the boys out on the highway down there, stationed out every so far apart, watching for us.
Escort.
Convoy. Convoy.
Too much.
There.
Okay,
That's it, taking out the picture.
Not duck.
all right.
That's a tape.
That's it.
Wait, wait,
How about you, Jerry?
Well, you thought
Hey, Jerry.
Pretty girl.
Wait a minute, all right, big smile, big smile. Oh, that's
Let's
great.
put your 2 ants in there.
I will do that too, just a second. Okay, one more, just for kids. Whoa. Names were what?
You mean her first name?
Yeah.
My mother's name was Sarah, but they called her Sade.
Sade?
I never heard anybody call her Sarah, never in my life.
I'll be there.
And my father's name was George.
It was spelled Crum, C-R-U-M.
Uh,
Where were they? What's the roots? Where are they from?
well, they were both from Ohio. And I don't know exactly what town, if that's what you want to know. I don't know that. I don't have any idea what town they were born in. I never heard him say.
Are they German? Is Crum a German name?
My father was German, and my mother's father was Scotch, and her mother was Irish.
What was her maiden name?
My mother's maiden name?
Mm-hmm. Yes, your mother's maiden name. Sarah.
My mother's maiden name was Mitchell.
Okay.
No, it wasn't. That was her mother's maiden name, was Mitchell.
Okay.
My mother's maiden name was Willison,
Willison.
and her mother's maiden name was Mitchell. How could I forget that?
Did you know them?
They were both dead before I
Is
was.
that right?
I have never had any grandparents.
No kidding.
Never had any grandparents. Never.
So we had a Crum and a Willison merged together,
Right.
and from that came how many children
In my family,
in your family?
6.
And do you remember what was the order? Who were they?
You mean you want their names?
Yes.
Okay. There was Edith, and Earl, and Florence, and Marks, and Mary, and William.
Twins. Were there 6 altogether? And were there twins in this group?
Yeah. She had 2 sets of twins. And my Earl was a twin, but she died when they were about 13 months old, I think.
Both twins did?
They both had, well, at that time they called it infantile paralysis, but since they call it polio.
Huh.
But she died when she was 13 months old. And then Florence and Lawrence, they were twins. And they were 3 years older than me.
And then you, and then William.
I'm 7 years older than him.
Okay. We don't know much about them. What happened to them? William? William he's still alive, correct?
He still is. He lives in Florida. He lives down around I forget the name of the town he does live in now. He lives around Fort Lauderdale. That's where he lives.
And your good friend Sarah is...
Sarah was my niece. She was my oldest sister's first child. And she is 3 years younger than me.
So that would have been... What was her mother's name?
My mother?
No, Sarah's mother's name.
Her name was Edith.
Edith. Oh, was Edith... Okay, just so I get this straight. Was Edith's twin brother who died?
Edith what?
It was Edith's twin brother who died?
No.
No?
Edith was the oldest one in the family. Then it was Earl and his twin sister, and
Right.
she died when they was 13.
I see. Okay.
13 months old. Then there was Florence and Lawrence, and they were twins.
Gotcha.
And there was me.
And then William.
Then
So, okay, so there was 7 altogether, and 1 died early.
Yes, yeah, there was 7, but I guess because she died so young, I didn't count her, but there was 7 of us altogether.
Reminiscences of your mother or dad? What kind of people were they?
What kind of people were they?
Yeah. What'd your dad do for a living?
Well, my father was an insurance salesman for many, many years. And then from there he worked for a jewel tea company. He sold jewel tea products.
I remember Jewel Tea.
And during World War I, though, he worked at JML Steel Mill in Aliquippa. He was a timekeeper there. And that's just about the sum of substance of it all.
How long did he live?
He was 86 when he died, just 86. His birthday was in, no, he had been 86 on the 18th and he died on the 14th. He was 86.
Your mother?
My mother, my mother was 85 when she died. She was 85 in November, and she died first part of January.
She was a housewife?
What?
She was a housewife, or did?
Oh yes, yeah, oh yeah. Them days she didn't do anything else.
That's right.
You have to take care of your house and your family. Yeah.
Were you sort of unique in your day by working, Grandma?
No, not really, because that was during the war, and everybody that could take part did, and there wasn't anything unusual about that. Many people did that.
You worked at, was it St. Joe?
St. Joe Radio.
What kind of business was that?
What kind of business?
Yeah.
Well, they called it a lead company, but they really manufactured zinc. And this zinc was used for many things. And their byproduct was acid. And I don't know too much about that business because I wasn't involved in that.
Mm-hmm.
That was my department.
You worked there a long time, didn't you?
Worked there from 1941 until 1970. Must have been about October of 41 until June of 1970.
But around 1970, you and Granddad to retire about the same time?
No. He retired 1969. I'm just sure. Middle of 1969 or sometime in the fall of 1969. And I retired June of 1970.
You guys meet.
Well, my sister had a boyfriend, and he had a boyfriend, and he was talking to Mike, and he said, well, he asked if his friend had his friend had a sister, and she said yes. So he said, how about you asking her if she'll go out with me? So he asked, the sister's boyfriend asked me, and I said, yeah, well, we'll see what kind of a fellow he is. So I got him down, and that's what started that.
Where'd you go?
We went to Newcastle, to Cascade Park. That was a very popular place at that time. And that's where we went.
So did he start dating you? Did he call you up weekly or?
No, we went out there and then a week or so later he called me again and I went out there again. So that's kind of started the pattern and that's the name of that story.
Well, how long did he date you before you decided it was you were the one?
Oh, about 3 months. About 3 months.
Where did he pop the question to you?
On our front porch. We had a nice swing on our front porch. It was a real beautiful night. We had been out to, we went to a drive-in theater. And we come home, we were sitting on the porch just talking and reminiscing one thing and another. And that's when he asked me.
How'd he do it? Did he get on his knees? Was it?
Oh, no. It wasn't quite that romantic. He just asked me to marry him. And I said, well, I wasn't so sure I wanted to get married right now. I asked him sometime again. Maybe I had my mind made up by that time. So a couple of weeks later, he asked me again. So I said, well, I thought I might as well. And he said, well, when do you want to get married? And I said, well, I wasn't anxious to get married right away. And but he tried to tell me he didn't see why. What was use of waiting? If he was going to get married, might as well do it and get it over. And so we got married then in September.
Now, during that 2 weeks, while you were thinking about it, did you talk to anybody?
Did I talk to anybody?
About whether or not this guy was the great guy?
No, I didn't know anybody that knew him.
Did you talk to your mother? Did you say, hey, Mom, look, guess what's going on?
Yeah, well, yeah, but my mother, she wasn't, my mother wasn't hard to get along with. She had figured whatever I thought I wanted was up to me. If I thought I was going to have to live with him, it's up to me. And I worked at the telephone office at the time. And sometimes I wouldn't get home until about 11 o'clock. And that week I didn't see too much of him because he worked 2 different turns too. And but that
Did he ask your dad?
well, he talked to my dad about it, and my dad said, well, he said, well, if I was willing to marry him, it was all right with him. He said, I was one that had to live with him. So my dad liked him.
You liked him, huh?
He always liked him. That Mike could do no wrong. And he really liked Mike. He'd come to see us just to get to talk to Mike. He went there many nights, just sitting around talking to him. And they worked a lot together too. If they want anything done down home, why he'd come up and tell Mike he needed something done. I said, okay. It was an evening while I'll be down in the morning or whatever. He real quick to get out and help him do anything he wanted done. But he's also quick to help Mike too in case he needed anything.
Yeah.
They work good together. They got along real good.
Then you got married. Then you got married, right?
Oh yeah, we got married on September the 4th.
I think we got a copy of that old announcement. What was her name?
Mike's mother's name?
Yes.
Pauline.
Pauline.
I don't think you had that.
No.
But she died in April. That's when he was married in September. And her family, I don't know anything about them or his family either.
What was his dad's name?
Jim.
What did he do for a living?
Farmer.
A farmer?
Mm-hmm.
Cattle or?
Well, no. He lived on a farm. And, at one time, he raised cattle, but towards the end, he got older and he didn't do anything that I know. I don't know what his occupation was.
And how many children? How many were there?
How many children in Mike's family?
Yeah.
Oh, hi. Where's that? Mabel and Mike, Franny, and Hilda. Four.
There's maiden name was? Did you remember that?
Oh, his mother's name is Studer. Studer. She, they were German too.
So about the Freshkorn girls then were probably 3/4 German, 1/4 Scotch. Scott, rather.
Freshkorn? No.
Freshkorn German.
Freshkorn is all German as far as I know.
So the Mabel and Jerry would have been 3/4 German, is that right?
Oh my gosh.
Studer, Freshkorn, and Crumb.
Well, I'm German and Scotch Irish. So that would make them German and Scotch Irish too.
Yeah. And Cindy, you throw in a little bit of English.
Oh boy, she really likes that. She's really likes
And when you pass it through down to my kids with all the Swedish.
family, they're going to mix up worse than ever.
Oh,
Yeah.
Duly paid.
Put it in your pocket.
Really good. I want to make sure we went to that. Tip your top. Very good. Yay, yay. Hey, we got some team spirit. Our little spirit. Okay, this is our secret plan. Oh, you gave me my hat. This is called pinch. No, you took my bunny. Pay attention there, Ron.
You didn't have any bunnies.
This is the score we're working for, 57 to nothing. That's where it's coming to 10. Now over here, Mabel, this is your key position. You have to understand this. When you get the ball, you make a left-hand turn.
Are you putting her in charge of direction?
That's right. And we've got to have her go left and right. What I want you to do is to be in this position here. And when Mabel gets here, she'll hand it to number 5-man Robert, who in turn will come back and hand it to number 4-man, who'll come to here. And he in turn will pass it to you.
Is it time for
who's
refreshments?
coming down from this direction.
When do we eat?
You understand?
You shouldn't have ever done that. Should be doing that. Put somebody else on it.
That's all I can do.
Yay!
Hey, Jim, get in there.
Cheer.
Hey, 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 hey. Square? Oh, hey. So you're going to come this way? Which way are we going to go? This way?
Follow the leader.
Follow the leader.
Yes, we have to do.
Six pounds. From you. I love the fact that there's no running.
There are 2 railroad ties there. Get to the end of the road, you simply get off, turn around, and come back.
Get off, turn around.
You can negotiate without getting off, that's fine. Here's the road.
But it's starting at the
That's where
yellow
you
mark.
start. The teams representing the Howards. For 4, Jim Howard riding lead and riding shotgun number 5. That's okay. That's the Howard team. And number 4, Mike here. Now that is the referees after the 7 events tonight. There'll be a presentation ceremonies in the whole 9 yards. I'm out of here now.
They made it, didn't they? They're going.
The Howards, here they come. Watch out! Coming close. All right, one rat. All right, let's still black ball. Do it again. Three black. To Mr. and Mrs. Michael Freshkorn. Heavens up, Pencil. Special message for you. You have a camera?
The rest of me is that was significant time around when you're in a fluid dropping in. I see her.
This says, Great House in Washington. We are pleased to share the joy of this occasion with you. May the happy memories of your years together bring warmth to your celebration. Pay tribute to our nation's greatest strength, the American family. Congratulations and may God bless you. Ronald Reagan and Nancy Reagan. Stop! Listen here. Hey, come on.
Pierce is coming out like gangbusters. Right again.
That's great. Very suggestive.
Is it all clean or is it all dirty? All dirty. And dirty. Who told you to wash it? Daddy. Daddy. Daddy.
Amy, who's coming next week?
Grandma Howard.
Who else?
Papa.
Papa, that's right.
Howard.
Who else?
Grandma. Grandma Freshkorn.
Who else?
Grandpa.
And who else?
Grandpa. Grandpa Freshkorn.
Uncle
Jim and Bob.
and the Pierces?
Yes.
Oh, we'll have a good time.
Yep.
That was,
Why you're washing the car? Yeah. So in case Jimmy and I want to go for a ride.
How'd you break my leg off?
Don't go for a ride. You take your key. Daddy. No. Put your finger out.
Oh.
So I gotta do something.
Ooh.
Put your finger
Ooh, he did that finger, right? Look at that. Did my finger.
CD2 oil detergent. Cleans quad, valves, rings, and liquor. That's for my new valve.
Part number. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Freshkorn's second annual Stephathlon. Like there's some of you come up. Jim Howard, captain of the Denora team.
Dragon.
Watch the curses go for plunk.
Hey.
Is it?
I know.
Fight, team, fight! Fight, team, fight! Fight, team, fight! Fight, team, fight! Oh, Angela! Howard's got the power! Angela! Howard's got the power! Angela! Howard got the power! Angela! Howard got the power!
Wait, no.
Hey, you are crazy.
Do it again.
So I was in the bathroom, Jim went out and rang the doorbell. To hear what the doorbell sounded like. I thought, well, where did they go? When I hear this man saying, no, man was. And I said, no, I got a package for you. I said, are you sure?
University of Michigan. Ann Arbor, Michigan. UPS, next day air. Mr. and Mrs. Michael Freshkorn. 2 Wembley Drive, Jamestown, New York. Okay. Oh, all right. And we have a picture of Gerald R. Ford, the President of the United States. To Mike and Mary, best wishes, Gerald R. Ford. Greg is outside and shop again. I mean, last year was President Reagan, this year is Ford.
Your ancestor is Michael. Baby, love the baby? Do you love that baby? It's you.
Left, right, left, right, left, right, bigger left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, left. One blue, two blue. All right. They win.
Don't you know who that is? McNamara. McNamara. Oh my God, sorry. Get quick. Three cheers. One of Mike's and Mary's favorite activities is permanently married.
56 straight, like you would imagine.
56 straight. Like Ned year's record, the Freshkorns have enjoyed 56 consecutive years of marital bliss. And MJ has to their credit 2 daughters, New Testament, 7 grandchildren, and 2 great children. Great children? Personal friends of President and Nancy Reagan. Hobbies are gardening and cooking. Powers get the top.
13, 14. Favorite who? The Red.
That's the Williams twins. Let's go! Everyone's in it, so all of your barbecue. I want to. Now we're going to have to find little boxes for all that stuff, right? And you don't lose it. Be very careful with it. Oh, look how beautiful. What do you girls say? Thank you. Thank you. I got.
Hey, Granddad. It's your first great grandson. Holy cow.
You're welcome. You're welcome, sweetheart.
Oh my goodness.
We love you. Oh, how nice. Look at
We love you. Happy birthday to you.
Look at that. I love it. Open it. Open it? Maybe you can help her open it. You're pretty good at that. You want to help?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
What's it say? What's it say?
It says from one Southerner Baptist to another. Happy birthday. Megan and Amy, look at Grandma. Oh.
Literally from one Southern Baptist to another. Happy birthday.
Well, look at this. Now raise it, we see what this says. We are pleased to join your family and friends in sending you our congratulations on this special occasion. With our best wishes, Jimmy Carter. Susan Carter. So how about that?
How about that?
Oh, for crying out loud. Isn't that, he's eating all 3 fingers for him.
Where? Hey, Granddad?
Hey, Granddad! Grandma, you're later. They don't know.
I was outside, the guy just pulled up. Is that right? Yeah. Hey, Granddad. Last delivery today. Grandmother. Granddad.
Mother, you're later with
Sooner or later, Jane. I need something to help open this.
Here, give me the.
I'll open the edge. Figured that's probably good. There you go. MJ. It's from PCL, CMH, 28.
Free meal and everything.
Well, let's see what this is now. Oh, looky here.
Oh.
Who's that? Very Freshkorn. Thanksgiving, October the date is 10th. The 10th. And it is now 6:10.
What is it?
3 what it says.
Who's it from?
Well, hi, George.
That's the vice president.
This
Soon
is
to be president.
from the Vice President of the United States of America.
Oh, my.
Officially signed to Mike and Mary Freshkorn with congratulations on 59 years of marriage.
Whoa, here.
Best wishes. And this is your Vice President.
Hi, George.
Very good. I can see
That's the kind of kiss that we've been married for 59 years. That's not the kind of kiss when you get from your first marriage. Remember,
The old way and the new way.
I want you all to know how much we really appreciate it. You've all been so great over the years. Nobody could possibly ever want a greater family. There's so much love and so much affection in this family. It's overwhelming. It's everywhere you see. It's everywhere you can feel it. You can see it and you can experience it. And I am just so proud of each and every one of you. No one will ever know. I can't express my gratitude to each one of you. You have been so good to us over the years. Nobody, I don't care who it is, could ever tell you how much we appreciate everything that you all have done for us. And we appreciate you all so much. And we are so proud of your achievements and everything that you have done. And we've been praying for all of you. And I know you've been praying for us. And we are so glad that we all be together. And I want to thank you, each and every one. I know you've come distances to be here. And you didn't come because it's just another day. You come because you love us all. And we know that. And we appreciate that. And we love you all too.
Amen.
And we're so glad that you had nice journeys here, a safe journey. And I'm so glad you brought us all here to be together again. And I hope that we're all able to be together again maybe next year.
Yeah.
Early in the morning, and we had a big 5-gallon bucket, pail. And we would take this milk and take it to these customers. And they always had to have a container to receive this milk because we'd pour this milk into a pitcher, a galvanized pitcher, and pour this into the receptacle, whatever they had. So my brother says to me this one morning, he says, you go over there and take the milk to that house, and I'll go to this other house, which was 2 houses away. Well, Lord, I went over there, and of all things, somebody pulled a little thing back and looked out, and I could see only an eye. I was scared to death. I was going to run, and I don't know why I didn't. And then the door opened up. Here stood a great big man. Had a robe on and a big cord around there. And he had a lot of whiskers. And I'm telling you, that scared the life from me. I just put the bucket down and the pitcher beside it, and I run across the street. And my brother had this buggy with a horse, and I jumped in that buggy. And it was in the wintertime. It was cold. And there was a robe there, and I pulled it over my legs and covered my head up and all. I was afraid that man was going to come in. And here, I didn't know that Lawrence had done this all the time. But this day he told me to do it, but he never told me what I was going to experience. And here, this was the Catholic priest that come to open this door to get this milk. And I had never seen the priest before. I knew he was there at the Catholic. I knew the Catholic Church was there, and I had a priest, but I had never seen him. And here, when I did see him, it scared the life out of me. Lawrence came out, and he was so mad at me. And I said, well, you didn't tell me what I was going to see there. I was scared. I never went back there anymore. He didn't take me no more either.
That's terrific.
Oh, was I scared? And I couldn't have been more than, I suppose maybe 7 years old at that time.
And Lawrence would have been 10?
He was about 10, 11. Oh, about that, I suppose. Oh, she was about 10 or 11 years old. And of course, she didn't have to know anything to have a horse and a buggy at that time, you know.
Right.
And that early in the morning, it was early in the morning when we did this.
Now, he had a milk route?
No, well, not really. It was just a few people. My brother-in-law had these few cows. And there's a few people that he delivered milk to every morning. And Lawrence, I don't know how he come to be doing this, but he had the job of doing this. And I suppose he delivered milk to maybe about 10 people. And most of the time he took me with him. Sometimes I did go, but most of the time he took me with him. But he usually did it himself. I would just go with him, and he'd take the milk to these different people. This morning he told me to go over there, and that was a big mistake. I never will forget that. But in later years, I was so embarrassed. I said, why would I be afraid? But I was. And I can imagine him standing back laughing. I suppose he laughed his head off at me running from him, but I was scared. I couldn't have been very big at that time.
Now, were you pretty close to Lawrence in later years?
Oh yeah, we was always close as ones in the family, Lawrence and I. We just kind of grew up together, apart from the rest of the family somehow or another. I don't know how it's come, but we did.
Now, how much older was the Florence would have been this obviously the twin of Lawrence, same age. Then the older kids were.
Oh, the next one was my brother, and he was the next one to them. He would be 6 years older than him. Yeah, he would be 6 years old. None of us was close together. They was about 6 years apart, and my oldest brother and my oldest sister was 7 years apart. And Lawrence and I, we were 3.5 years apart. We were the closest of anybody in the family. And my youngest brother and I was 7 years between us.
Wow.
None of us was close together. Only the closest was 3.5 years with Lawrence and myself was 3.5 years.
Yeah. So you really didn't get to know much, about your brothers the older kids were just about out of the house by the time you were born.
Yeah, that's what I say. They were all much older than me.
Mm-hmm.
Because none of us was close. None of us was close together. 6 years, and my youngest brother and I was 7 years apart. But Lawrence and I was 3.5 years apart. That's the closest. And, he'd go in the spring of the year, and I'd always have marbles. You know how they.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was supposed to carry his lucky shooters. And if I would give him a shooter he asked for, and he didn't do real well with that shooter, then I gave him the wrong one. I don't know why you gave me the wrong one. I gave him what he asked for. But it was always the wrong one if he didn't do well with it. I always had to carry his bag of shooters with me. Well, he played.
My kids will not know anything about marbles. How did that work?
They don't know anything about marbles?
Nope.
I can't tell you how it worked. But you start out with these little marbles, and you got the more you got out of the ring, you was the winner. You got the most out of the ring.
But you'd have to hit the marble with a shooter.
Yeah, and then the marbles you got out, the more you got, you was the winner. Then they got sophisticated, and they would use shooters, these glass ones, and that was the ultimate when you started doing that, because you're taking their prized possessions.
There you go.
Oh boy! Then he used to go fly a kite, and I would always have to go with him to fly that kite, because I had to help him with that twine on that reel. Then he decided I was supposed to watch that kite so it didn't break loose, and he'd leave me. Well, it wasn't very long. He didn't come back, and I left too.
Yeah.
I broke loose. Nobody got mad at me. Well, he wasn't there either. So I don't know why he got so mad at me. It was his kite. We used to make kites. Did you ever make a kite?
Never did.
Never did?
Never made a kite, no.
Oh, you just clear everything off the table, and if the kite is a big one, you did it on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
And you had these sticks, and you got yourself a big, if you're lucky, you got a big piece of paper from the butcher shop to make your kite. And if you didn't use this, but you just used newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
Then you took this kite out on a hillside someplace, and you flew it. Well, we worked lots of hours on making them kites, Lawrence and I. Clear the table, and well, finally cleared the kitchen. Everybody left the kitchen because Jose moved in there for them.
That's terrific.
Only us and the kites. I hadn't thought about that for a long, long time, but making those kites. We used to go on a hillside hours. In the spring of the year, it could get pretty cold.
Mm-hmm.
That wind blowing, you know. Oh, I got pretty cold standing there. My fingers was cold. Had to help him get that kite up in the air. Oh boy. I hadn't thought about kite flying for a long, long time.
What'd you do for school? Was there a public schools?
Oh, yeah. Everybody had to go to public school.
What years when did you start school? What age?
6 years old.
6 years old. And go till when?
Do what?
And you'd go to school till what age?
Well, you go through high school.
High school?
Mhm.
It's pretty much like today.
Oh, yes, just like today. Only you walked to school. There was no question about how you was going to get to school. Regardless of where you lived in the town, you walked. Some people walked farther than others.
Mm-hmm.
And but nobody complained. You just did it. That just was expected of you. And there's no problem going to school. But everybody went to school, went on to high school, and some people went to college and some people didn't. The 10 days, it wasn't so important to go into high school as it is now.
Mm-hmm.
Things got so technical nowadays that you have to go to school to go to college. But everybody didn't go to college in them days.
Did any of your family go to college? You go?
No.
No?
None of my family.
Because there was such an age difference, did you keep up with your older siblings at all after you got married? Did you keep track of them?
Well, yeah. We all lived around. We all lived around there around the same place.
Mm-hmm.
Around the valley there. We never stood very far apart. We always lived in the same area.
Right.
Oh. We never had any reason to live anyplace else.
Mm-hmm.
Because we lived in an industrial area.
Mm-hmm.
And there was always work of some description all the time.
Did you get to know them better as you got older, or is it just once apart? Yeah.
Did what get better?
Did you get to know your brothers and sisters a little bit better as you got older?
Oh, no. We just all grew up together, and we all got married. We all had our families. And we all still stayed right there in the same area. And it's as simple as that. Just like a normal family, I guess, that lives in the same town. You just didn't have any reason to go anyplace else, so you stayed right there. And like I said, that area was an industrial area, and there was something, some kind of work in every town around there at that time. We had steel mills, from Pittsburgh on down through our valley, and we also had a glass house, a place to manufacture glass. And for years and years and years, Fry's Glass House was known for their product all around the world
Mm-hmm.
at that time. And of course, it isn't anymore, but that was a very popular place for people to be employed from our town. And then other towns, almost all towns around here had some kind of an industry. We lived right along the Ohio River there. There's always a lot of work up and down that Ohio River. There wasn't any employment. Everybody was employed around in them days.
How'd the Depression hit you guys?
Oh, don't talk about the Depression. That was a terrible thing. And I wouldn't want that to happen to anybody. That was a terrible experience. And I think we all ought to deserve a Nobel Prize for living through it.
Yeah.
I stop to think about it. That was a terrible experience. And that you got through it at all, I think we all deserve a Nobel Prize for that.
You had just got married then, right?
I had just gotten married in 1928, and the bottom fell out of things in 1930.
Did you have work during that time? Were you?
Oh, no. Well, unions weren't very strong at that time. And all the mills was trying to organize for the unions. In 1931 and 32, the steel mills all started to try to organize to the union. And that was a very terrible time, too, because there was a lot of violence during this particular time. And, of course, at that time, we didn't live in town. We lived out of town because work wasn't very good at that time. Because it was that time Roosevelt became president. And things was pretty slow. And the Depression was real. There was no two ways about that. So we lived out of town. And boy, we didn't go no place. We didn't have any means of getting any place. We just stuck out there. And maybe Mike would get maybe 1 or 2 days a week. Maybe he wouldn't get any, but he had to go clear from there to Ambridge, which was, I would say 18 or 20 miles.
So that's Armco?
At that time, there was Spain Chalfont. But at that time, you had to go put in an appearance to see if you got a day's work that day. Sometimes you would be lucky enough to get a day's work, and sometimes you wouldn't. And they didn't get much an hour at that time, too. You must remember that. And that was quite a hardship. But we stuck it out. And but we were bad off, and I suppose there was some that was worse off than us, although we didn't think so at the time.
Yeah, I bet.
We didn't hit the water, nobody else did. But I'm sure there was others that were just as bad off as we were. And I suppose some that, there was a lot of better off than what we were, too. If they happened to be employed someplace where they didn't have a union, they were probably working. And but like I say, at that time they was forming unions in these steel mills, and the work wasn't very good. But we survived. I guess we're survivors.
Now, you weren't working at that time, were you?
Oh no. Maybe I was. She was just a new baby at that time. She was born in 1931, and that's just when things started getting bad in 1930. And in 1931, bottom dropped out of everything. I tell you, there wasn't no bottom. And
Did you own the house then, or
oh heavens, no.
Rented?
No, heavens, no. We didn't own a house until 1939. 1934. No, I'm trying to think now. must have been about 1939. I think when we bought our house up on Madison Street. And we had just been started to crawl back out of this depression. That's right after the depression. And then we had a recession. And just about the time you thought you had everything taken care of, it was on your way up, then this recession come along, and made you realize that you weren't going as fast as you thought you were. But we finally survived that. And then things started getting better, so. And, you've been married for so many years, a lot of things happen that you kind of forget about as the years go by. But,
Worked at Armco for a long period of time, didn't he?
he worked there from 1926 until, he worked there from 1926 until I retired in 70. He was in 69 when he retired. So he worked from 1926 to 69 up there.
And he was of an age where he sort of missed both wars, right?
Yes, he wasn't. Yeah, he wasn't old enough. He was a kid in World War I, and I was too. And then World War I and World War II, he was working in a steel mill, and he had 2 dependents besides me. I guess I would be counted as 3 dependents.
They gave you an exemption?
Yes. If it would have lasted any longer, they would probably have taken him.
Yeah.
But they was taking people with no children or people with maybe just one, and they hadn't got around to with the further 2 until the war was over. But they probably would have taken him if the war would have lasted a little bit longer.
Did Lawrence go into World War I? Did any of your brothers or sisters go?
No, they was all too young. And then to World War II, I don't know, Lawrence was too old, or he's working defense plant. Maybe that was it. I don't remember how he missed it. But nobody else was eligible.
Were you guys Republicans or Democrats? Democrat? Was the whole area pretty much Democrat?
I mean, were they?
Yeah.
Oh, no, it was mixed.
Mixed?
Oh, yeah. I was a Democrat because I didn't know any better.
Yeah. And Mike was a Democrat because you were a Democrat?
I don't know, I guess I never discussed that. I suppose he's Democrat because he wanted to be. I don't know. I was just a Democrat because my father was.
You mentioned about the steel mills and the violence of it. Did you guys ever meet John L. Lewis? John L. Lewis, wasn't he the guy who sort of organized the steel mills? The bushy-browed...
Mines. Was he steel mills? Mines. But oh, that was violent. That was terrible.
Did you know anybody got hurt in those things?
I didn't know anybody because, like I said, this was during the Depression.
Yeah.
And we was kind of out of circulation. We was living out of town, and we didn't have a newspaper. We couldn't afford a newspaper, so we didn't know anything about that. And we did have a radio, a small little radio. We could hear things on the radio. That's about our extent of knowing the communication, what was going on in the world. And then they only told you what they wanted you to know.
Right.
And but John L. Lewis, I don't know who was the head of the steel, but that didn't belong in the area, and that's what caused all the violence.
Mm-hmm.
That's, send all these people in from different towns that didn't even belong in the area, and that's what caused all the violence.
Mm-hmm.
That's,
Yeah.
yeah, people don't realize how things have changed. Of course, we don't realize either how much different times was when we was little. I can think of the things that we used to do that people today, young people today, it's unbelievable. Just like when my mother would tell us about things that they did when they was younger.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that was unbelievable. So I can understand the children today. If I were to tell them some of the things that we did, it'd be unbelievable to them.
For example, like what?
Things have changed so drastically, like shopping, for instance. So many things we take for granted today. You go to the store, you buy different things that when we were kids, you went to butcher shop to get meat. You went to grocery store to get groceries.
Mm-hmm.
And it was maybe 2 or 3 blocks apart. And you went to a store and you stand there and wait your turn to get waited on. Somebody goes and gets you your groceries. You might be in the grocery store for an hour or so.
Right.
And they didn't have enough clerks to serve all these people. Some people would just get groceries maybe once a week. And now you go shopping and every day. But then people didn't do that so much. And you went you went to the fruit market to buy fruit. You didn't go to one store to shop. You went to the fish market to buy fish. So you see that we have a whole different world we're living in.
Yeah.
Oh, you went to the bakery to get your bread and your pastries or whatever you buy, cookies. So grocery store for groceries, meat for meat, and fish market for fish, fruit market for fruit. Now you have them all in one store.
Do you recall your first car when you got married?
Do I do what?
Do you recall your first car?
First automobile. You mean a new one
Well, yeah.
or an old one?
Or an old one.
Huh? Well, when we first got married, he had an old Model T and traded it on a Pontiac was worse than his Model T. Then he decided, well, we better buy a new one. So we bought this new one. I think it's the first new car he ever had.
What kind of car was that?
It was a Ford.
Ford?
Yeah. And it was nice. But things are so much different now than what they was. But I think that's someday the younger generation is going to be telling the newer generations about how tough they had it too, how they had to drive their own part of the airport. Now they have their airplane in their own backyard. So
Sure.
you hear a noise from about everybody go out and look up in the sky, see an airplane. Now kids don't think anything about when they hear a plane going over. Where everybody threw open the doors and opened their windows, looked up in the air when the airplane went over. Now it's a common occurrence. Just things like that that kids today don't realize that we don't always have these things.
Do you remember your first television?
Oh, yeah. Sure. I remember our first radio. That was really a revelation in itself. Just getting a radio.
Do you remember any of the programs you used to listen to on the radio?
Oh, sure. We just listen to it. My dad used to sit down in front of the television and listen to the ball games and put down the scores. He had his own little score sheet he made, you know. He knew everybody was come up to bat, what they was going to do and what they did do and how many runs they made. Well, he'd sit there without the radio. You'd think he was seeing what was going on. Well, he couldn't move him for nothing. He really enjoyed ball games on on radio. He'd sit there by the hour.
Did they have the serials as far as the radio? You know
You mean television serials?
yeah, but on the radio like the
Sure. But we had so many things to do. We didn't have time to listen to the radio. You had to be. We're still having things. We have automatic washers now, and you don't make jelly we used to make our own jelly and all that. We don't do that anymore. So we didn't have as much time as we have now. But other things have changed so much. Everything is automatic now, and you can put your clothes in wash and go to bed and dry them the next day if you want to.
Yeah.
But all things have changed so much. But